Welcome, everybody. I'm going to talk today about how we do the physical and visual stream assessment. I'll go through all the details of the data sheet, and then the second half of the presentation will be about the rapid bioassessment protocol. I'll explain what that is and how we answer each of the 10 questions on that rubric. Just going to briefly go over safety. So we want you to always be safe, of course. A wadable stream is safe to enter and stand in. The water level should be no more than thigh or waist high, but it could be less than that if you are shorter or if the flow is fast. If it's pushing you over, then it's too fast, and you might not be safe to be in that stream. So page 1 of the data sheet. This is what it looks like overall, and then I'm going to zoom in on each section. Some of them are self-explanatory: the date, the time that you're doing your assessment, the organization that you're with. Investigators is your names. So we want you to have your first and last name or first initial and last name because first names are so common that it could be confusing if you only use first names. Site ID and site location, those will be given to you by your project leader. Approximate reach length. So this is aim for 100 meters. There are some situations where maybe you're not able to do 100 meters, and you would write that in here and what length you were able to assess. It should be close to 100 meters, if not 100 meters. You'll take an air temperature reading in degrees Celsius and water temperature in degrees Celsius. You'll record the current weather conditions. So, just obvious, is it clear, cloudy, is it raining? Hopefully you're not doing any assessments in heavy rain. This is just a lot less comfortable for you. And also when the substrate is stirred up and the water is turbid, it's much more difficult to get a good look at what the substrate looks like and to be comfortable with walking in the stream, and also just being able to do a good job of assessing the stream. So, and that's the same reason why we ask the question on the right, which is how long has it been since the last rain? If it's a little bit of rain, that, go ahead and check that box. But if it's a lot of rain and it's causing the stream to be too high and maybe unsafe or very turbid to where you can't see where you're putting your feet, then those would be good times to reschedule and not do an assessment that day. Also, we recommend that you not do an assessment if it's very cold. It's, again, uncomfortable for you and possibly unsafe. Going down to this next section of the data sheet, you will take a representative width of the stream. So we're not trying to do like a engineering survey or anything. We're just trying to get a general description of what this stream is like. So you'll pick what looks like basically an average width, a spot that has the average width for your 100 meters, and you'll take a measurement there. You'll indicate the units. The preferred units are meters, but make sure that you write, if it's not either way, write what meters you've used. Along that width, you will also take 5 measurements of the depth. And I will kind of demonstrate what that would look like. So the width is the width of the actual water. So that's the picture on the left. And the picture on the right represents somebody taking some measurements along that same location where you're measuring the width. You're also measuring the depth. One in the middle, one at each, going towards each direction about halfway, and then one on each side, maybe 6 inches or so from the edge. That'll give a good representation of what the stream looks like. And then for stream velocity, you'll mark off a 3-meter or a 10-foot length. That will depend on if your tape measure does meters or feet at a representative section of your stream. So if your stream is all slow, then you'll pick a slow section. If it's all fast, you'll pick a fast section. If it's in between, try to pick an in-between section. You'll float your, you'll measure that out. You'll have one person upstream and the other person in the downstream direction. You'll float the tennis ball or a duck, whichever one you have, along the transect. You'll time how long it takes. You'll repeat this 4 or 5 times. I forget if the data sheet actually has 4 times on the data sheet. You'll record those and you'll take an average. You don't have to do the math in the field. It's probably easier if you don't. Then in the third section of the data sheet, you'll answer a number of questions about what the stream looks like. So is the stream flow slow? So is it barely moving or not at all? Is it moderate, clearly moving, but the surface is flat? Or is it swift? It's clearly moving and the surface is disturbed, like riffly. You'll answer whether there is an odor to the water. And this will be, if it's normal, you're probably not going to, notice anything. Just be like, oh, it just smells like the outdoors. Anaerobic, sulfuric, sewage, petroleum, or other. I don't know what those others might be, but maybe, I don't know, maybe if there's detergent that has like a perfuming smell, maybe that would be under other. For turbidity, so that's how easy it is to see through the water. Is it clear? Is it slightly turbid? Is it turbid or muddy? Is it milky or green pea soup? And I have slides that show examples of these. For the surface coating, is there none, foam, scum, or paint streaks? And what is the color of the water? I already went through what does the stream look like as far as stream flow and odor. And we don't, this is a piece of equipment is called a Secchi disc, and we don't need to use those. Our streams that we're monitoring are usually fairly shallow, and we don't need to use a Secchi disc for this. It's just a good way to illustrate what it would look like. Can you see the bottom very clearly? Is the water clear? Is it slightly turbid? Or maybe if you can't see it at all, it is very turbid, like in this example. Or is it sort of a milky turbid? You could check off that box. Or does it look like pea soup? Now, in this situation, it could possibly be a harmful algal bloom. So this would be a situation where you might decide that you would not want to monitor that stream that day. It is very more rare for there to be a harmful algal bloom in a flowing stream, but it's not impossible. So a surface coating, this slide illustrates like an oily coating, which can be natural. Usually we say if it can be, if you like poke a stick at it and it kind of breaks up, that's probably a natural oil. If it kind of swirls around and it's kind of rainbowy color, that's probably a petroleum kind of an oil. Is there a scum? So obviously that's not a technical term, but you'll look at the stream and you'll be like, ew. But in this case, it's when you touch it, it's actually more cottony, but you would describe that as the choice that says scum. Sometimes there's foam. And this again can be natural or from man-made. In this case, you can see that some of the foam is looking kind of brownish. So natural foam can be from the aeration of the water along with natural plant oils and creating a foam. But it can also be from things that we put into the environment, like from washing our cars or things like that. Another choice for surface coating is floating duckweed. So duckweed is a small plant. When you look very closely, you can pick it up and it's little leaves with the tiny little root on it. So that's duckweed. This surface coating is actually a harmful algal bloom, and it sometimes looks like paint streaks. Green and blue-green algae can look like this. And in this case, you do not want to be monitoring the stream if it looks like this. But you can finish that part of your data sheet and report it. Watercolor, typically it's clear, but in some cases, maybe there's a color, maybe it's green or brownish, especially if you're in South Jersey and the Pinelands. Like the picture on the left shows sort of a tea color to the water, and that's natural for that area. And so sometimes color can be natural, but you'll record that on the sheet. In the next section, I'm going to talk about stream morphology, woody debris, macroinvertebrate habitat types, and the benthic substrate. So we want to be looking at where are the places where the macroinvertebrates are going to be living in this stream. So this is the same little video that Erin showed yesterday, illustrating stream morphology, showing how there's a run and a pool and a riffle in this photo. Woody debris. So woody debris is something that some macroinvertebrates really like to live in, that type of a habitat. This photo would illustrate where you would check off rare, because I'm not seeing a whole lot of wood in this picture. Maybe a little bit, maybe a piece over here on the side. In this picture, and again, we're looking at our whole 100 meters, not just one little picture that I can illustrate on the slide. But this picture shows some roots that are in the stream, and I would call this moderate. This stream shows an abundant amount of woody debris. You can see a bunch of logs and branches and things that had fallen into the stream, some roots, some trees that maybe their roots are hanging down in the stream over here. And remember yesterday, Erin was talking about the different habitats that macroinvertebrates like to live in. So in this question on your data sheet, you're just going to check off the ones that are present. So are there riffles and cobble? Is there wood and submerged logs? Are there leaf packs? Excuse me. Is there aquatic vegetation? And aquatic vegetation is vegetation that's in the water, and I'll be showing some pictures of those in later slides. But we're not talking about vegetation that's growing on an island or on the stream banks. We're talking about what's in the stream. Is there overhanging vegetation that's like actually hanging down into the water? Are there undercut banks, gravel, sand, or other? In this section of the data sheet, this one can be a little bit challenging at first, because we want you to decide on a percent for each of these different types of substrate. And it goes by size. So clay and silt is very small, less than a millimeter in size. Sand is about 1 to 2 millimeters. You can feel that it's gritty. Gravel is about 0.1 to 2.5 inches. Cobble is about 2.5 inches to 10 inches. So say the size of a tennis ball up to maybe a basketball. A boulder is over 10 inches, so like over the size of a basketball. And bedrock is when the rocks are unbroken. And we will see some bedrock definitely at Nishosaquit Creek when we're out in the stream on Saturday. And you don't have to be worried about getting the percentage exactly right. We do want you to make sure that it adds up to 100% because that makes sense. And especially to show what things are there and which things are not there, and in what order they're present. So you can kind of talk it over with your partner and come up with percentages so that it adds up to 100% and is in the order that they are present. In this section of the data sheet, we're going to talk about the types of aquatic vegetation and algae, what kind of vegetation is on the banks, and how much tree canopy there is. So in our data sheet, we have the choices of rooted emergent vegetation, free floating, rooted floating, and rooted submergent. And I'm going to show examples of each of these. So this plant is a rooted emergent plant. So the roots are in the water down into the substrate of the stream, and then they're emerging out of the water. So that's what it means by rooted emergent. This slide shows rooted submergent vegetation. So it's rooted into the bottom of the stream, but it doesn't grow upwards like with strong stems out of the water. Now, if the water is very low that day compared to when the algae or plant was growing, it might stick out a little bit, but you'd probably be able to tell that its normal amount of growth is that it would be under the water. Rooted floating vegetation is things like water lilies. So they are rooted in the bottom of the stream, and they're floating. The leaves are floating on top rather than being underwater or sticking up into the air. Free floating are like the duckweed that I mentioned earlier, and the line drawing in the middle shows what they look like if you look very close. So the leaves are very tiny, but they're little leaves, and they're not attached down into the substrate. They're just floating around and with little leaves and a tiny root that just hangs down into the water. That's free floating. So in the box that talks about algae, you'll be saying whether there's periphyton on the rocks. This is very common. Sometimes we don't realize that that's an actual algae that's growing, but it is food for some of the macroinvertebrates and habitat. So we want to say whether it is there and whether it is abundant or not. Often we notice it because it makes the rocks very slippery. There could also be filamentous algae. These form long visible chains, threads, or filaments. They might look kind of slimy, but when you touch them, they often feel kind of stringy or cottony. And they kind of form a mat, or I like to say they kind of feel like wet wool if you actually take them out of the water. You're like, oh, this doesn't really feel slimy at all. But it can float on the top, and in contrast to the harmful algal blooms that I was talking about earlier, that will not look like this at all. The harmful algal blooms are single-celled, and you won't see threads or woolliness. So to reinforce that thought, on the left is scum or algae that holds together if you were to poke it with a stick, and on the right are some examples of harmful algal blooms or from cyanobacteria. And if you were to poke it, it would stir around, but you wouldn't be able to pick anything up. It would just be in the water. And if you do think something is a harmful algal bloom, again, you should report that, and DEP can follow up to see if it is or not. The next question is about bank vegetation. So this illustration shows the trees, the shorter woody growth like shrubs, and non-woody plants like grasses, flowers, things like that. And ideally, you will have a variety of all three types. For the tree canopy, you're going to be looking up from the middle of the stream, or imagining what it looks like from the middle of the stream, and how much of the water gets shaded by the tree canopy. And the illustration is just kind of gives you an idea of what that would look like if it was, 10, 20, 30%. And then you will pick the one that is most representative, but remember, thinking about the whole 100 meters. How much shade is this stream getting? Here's an example of one that's open. I don't see any trees shading this stream. Partly open, I see a good amount of sky, but also a good amount of shade. And then mostly closed or closed. This one's nice and shady, keeps the water much cooler. Now we're already jumping to page 2 on the back of the data sheet. So this is what the full page looks like, and I'm going to be going into each part separately. So at the top, we want you to check off what land uses are within about a 1/4 mile radius of your site. So this is a little beyond what you can see from where you are when you're actually at the site. So it's a good idea to look at your site on online mapping to get an idea of what's around around your site. You'll record any structures, any litter, and wildlife observations. So here's some examples of land use, such as commercial, industrial, farmland, maybe preserved open space. Here's some examples of structures, and we're just talking about the structures that are within your 100 meters. So often there's a bridge, because often we choose our sites where there is a road crossing, because that's the most convenient. There at the top left is a culvert. The top right is a dam. Now, we're not going to have any sites that include the dam, and preferably we're not doing a site that is any closer than 500 feet from a dam. That way you're avoiding any possible influence from the dam and getting a better picture of the health of the stream. At the bottom left, there's just like I don't know, the remains of something that people built, a little, maybe a weir. But that's still somewhat affecting the stream as well. So you would record that on your data sheet. You could record if you have any observations of wildlife or livestock, evidence of beavers in the area. Geese or cows could be sources of nutrients, let's call them. And is there, how much litter is present? So this is a good place to record if there is a need to come back and maybe do a cleanup in that location. The site sketch, I don't know that I've ever met anybody who enjoys when they get to the site sketch section of the data sheet. It doesn't have to be an art project. Basically, we want to have a recording of where you entered the stream and kind of some important characteristics of that stream in that location. So when you draw your stream, however you draw it on the picture, which way is the water flowing? Where did you enter the stream? Are there buildings around? Where are the riffles or pools or the in-stream structures that we talked about? This will give like a heads up to the people who are maybe the next time, whether it's yourself and you just want a reminder of where you entered the stream last time, or the next person who's going to be monitoring there can get a good idea of what the site looks like, where you parked. That can be helpful as well. And I don't think I've ever seen a site sketch be this detailed or this neat and artistic, but it gives some examples of things that you would want to include. We are down to the section where it asks about which region are you assessing? Are you assessing high gradient or low gradient? And this is determined by the physiographic province of where your site is. So it's not going by whether there's actual riffles or not. Sometimes in the northern part of the state, your site might be in a place where if you were to describe it, you wouldn't say, oh, there's a high gradient here, but you were in the high gradient section of the state. For the people who are on Stream School today, the answers for this section are always going to be the same. I'm not sure if your project manager might not give you the wrong answers. Maybe they'll just edit the data sheet so that you only have the right answer available. But the sample equipment that you're going to be using is a DNet. The preservation method is that you are not going to preserve the samples. You're going to be identifying them in the field. So you would check off where it says none, Tier 3.1 field identification. And then on the right, where it says the form attached, the form that you're going to be attaching is the Tier 3.1 macroinvertebrate tally sheet. And Erin showed you that in one of her slides yesterday, and she'll go over that in more detail.